The story begins with high school president Suzune Inukami and vice president Kazuki Ryusen walking into their classroom. They're obviously the most popular students in school and are always seen together. After school that day, Suzune and Kazuki plan to sort some documents before heading home. Meanwhile, another student, Ken Usato, is the complete opposite of them. He's the least popular and feels like the most forgettable person. As he's about to head home after saying goodbye to his classmates, he spots a bird's nest on the floor with hatchlings screaming for help. Ken picks up the nest and, using a ladder, returns it to a safer place. Deep down, Ken has always hoped for a more exciting life, but it is what it is. It starts raining, and when he goes to the umbrella stand, he finds his umbrella is gone. He notices there's another umbrella but thinks he'd just cause the owner problems if he took it. So, he sits down, waiting for the rain to let up. While sitting there, he wishes he had magic to help him get home. Soon, Ken realizes he's been sitting for hours, and the rain shows no signs of stopping. He scoffs in surprise, and at that moment, Suzune appears. Suzune quickly figures out that Ken doesn't have an umbrella, which is why he's stuck in the school. Ken is shy about answering her and just says he'll be heading home now. Suzune stops him, saying it wouldn't be right to send him off like that. Kazuki shows up and offers Ken his spare umbrella so he can get home in the rain. Ken is surprised, as he never thought of Kazuki as a nice guy. They've never even talked, despite being in the same class. Ken gratefully accepts the umbrella and thanks them both for their help. Then Suzune suggests they all walk home together, which shocks Ken even more. It feels like he's dreaming. He wonders how the whole school will react when they find out he walked home with the two most popular students. He gets so lost in thought that he doesn't realize he's speaking out loud. Suzune and Kazuki are surprised to hear this, but Ken quickly brushes it off. They start heading home, and Ken uses the opportunity to ask if they're dating. The two turn to him, asking why he'd want to know, and he replies that people are always talking about it, which is why he asked. They say they appreciate that he asked them directly instead of gossiping. Suzune then tells Ken that she and Kazuki aren't dating. They just spend a lot of time together because they're both on the student council. As they continue walking home, Suzune asks Ken what his plans are after school. He admits he doesn't have any, and the same goes for Hershey feels like she's not where she should be. Suddenly, they stop when they hear a bell ringing. They're surprised that Ken doesn't hear it too. The sound gets louder, but they have no clue where it's coming from. Suddenly, a bright yellow magic circle opens up beneath their feet. They wonder what the circle is for, but Ken guesses it's probably a gate to another world. Suzune seems excited by this idea, and wonders if there will be heroes and demons in the world they're about to enter. The magic circle starts to pull them in, and they get sucked into the portal. Upon waking up, they find themselves in a throne room. A king, a priestess, and guards are looking down at them. Kazuki and Ken seem bothered by this, while Suzune is excited they've stumbled into another world. Kazuki loudly demands to know what they've done to them and why they're there. One of the guards wants to silence him for disrespecting the king, but the king stops him. He decides to introduce himself and speaks to the trio in a calm manner. The king's name is Lloyd Vulgas Linger, and he is the king of Linger. He informs them that they have been summoned to the Linger Kingdom to serve as heroes. This news excites Suzune because it's exactly what she wants. Lloyd explains that 2 years ago they were attacked by the Demon King and his armies. The nation managed to fend off the enemies, but the demon army has been getting stronger since then. There's no telling when they'll attack again, which is why they summoned heroes as a precaution. Kazuki, now angry, stands up and scolds the king for bringing them into this fantasy world without their consent. They have families back home, and he is certain they will be worried. He demands that the king send them back, but the king explains that the summoning only works one way: they can be summoned, but not returned. Frustrated, Kazuki gets angrier and tries to step closer to the king, but guards stop him. The king then rises from his throne, approaches the trio, and bows to them. He apologizes for the misunderstanding, and assures them he will find a way to send them back once they defeat the Demon King and his army. The priestess and the guards in the room also bow in solidarity with their king. Hearing this, Suzune agrees to be a hero, but questions why they're called heroes when they know nothing about each other. The king then instructs the priestess, Welsie, to explain. Welsie says the summoning circle is designed to choose the most capable individuals. She asks if they heard bells ringing before being summoned, and they reply yes. However, they suddenly realize that Ken didn't hear the bells. Taken aback, Ken wonders if he's been dragged into their mess just because he was with them. Welsie then announces it's time to measure their magical abilities and find out what type of magic they possess. She leads them to a room with a crystal ball that can accomplish this. Suzune is the first to approach the ball, eager about everything happening while Kazuki and Ken are still absorbing their new situation. Suzune touches the ball, and it turns yellow. Welsie explains that her affinity for magic is strong, and she has thunder magic. This makes Suzune even more excited. Next, Kazuki touches the ball, and it turns white. Welsie informs him that he possesses light magic, which is rare and can dispel evil. Finally, Ken steps up to touch the ball and see if he has any magical powers. He hopes that if he does, he can help Kazuki and Suzune. He touches it, and it turns green. At this moment, Welsie is left in total shock. Welsie quickly grabs Ken and pulls him out of the room, telling the others to wait. She drags Ken to the throne room and informs the king that the ball turned green when Ken touched it. The king is shocked by this news. Just as Welsi is about to reveal Ken's type of magic, the king interrupts and insists they must get Ken away from the palace urgently. Ken starts wondering why they want to move him. He assumes they think he's dangerous. He asks if anyone else has the same magic as him, and the king confirms there is. He's about to elaborate when a woman bursts through the door. Everyone in the throne room is struck with fear at her arrival. The woman's name is Rose, and the king assumes she was off duty that day. Rose asks how the summoning ritual went. The king quickly replies that the heroes are in the throne room and that the summoning was successful. She introduces herself as the captain of the kingdom's rescue team. Just looking at Rose sends chills down Ken's spine. He sees her as someone who eliminates rather than saves people. After the introduction, Rose bids farewell to the king and starts to leave. The king breathes a sigh of relief at this and tells Ken that a room will be prepared for him later in the day. Ken is curious about the magic and asks what it means when the ball turns green. Rose is about to leave but suddenly stops and turns back upon hearing this. The king is filled with fear as Rose approaches Ken. She tells the king she will be borrowing the boy, but he instructs Welsi to get Ken away from her. Welsi follows the king and uses her magic to create a bubble around Ken, but Rose dashes after him with her super speed. Ken finds himself floating in the sky when Rose jumps after him, breaking the bubble around him with powerful punches. The king and his guards rush out of the palace, but it's too late. Rose has already captured the unsuspecting Ken. She tells the king that she will take over Ken's training and assures him that she will turn him into a full-fledged healing magic user. This revelation confirms that Ken's green color indicates his affinity for healing magic. The king tries to explain that Ken was only caught up in this, but Rose doesn't want to hear it. She carries Ken away from the castle. Later, Kazuki and Suzune learn about Ken's abduction. They worry he's in danger, but Welsi reassures them he won't be harmed. She explains that Ken has been taken to the rescue team located just beyond the castle. She mentions that healing magic users are rare, which is why Rose wants to train him since she herself is a healing magic user. Suzune thinks this is fine, but Welsi warns that Rose's methods are concerning. They're unorthodox, and her subordinates can be scary. Meanwhile, Rose and Ken arrive at the rescue team's house. Rose calls her subordinates and tells them to welcome Ken. Ken feels fear when he sees the subordinates she's referring to. They look intimidating and seem a bit off. The boys introduce themselves: Ken, Mill, Alec, Gomel, and Gerd. Rose instructs the boys to treat Ken well and not scare him. She tells Ken that these boys aren't healing magic users. She's just training them as her followers. There are other healing magic users, but they work elsewhere. Rose lays out her plan for intense training, shocking Ken by saying it starts the next day. After saying this, she heads to her room, informing Ken that he will be sharing a room with Tong. That night, Ken lies on the bed, hoping everything goes well. Meanwhile, Rose is in her chambers, eagerly anticipating how things will turn out with the new healing magic user from another world. The next day, Ken wakes up, hoping it was all a dream. Unfortunately, he realizes he's still in the fantasy world, and it feels all too real. He is still in the room when Tong comes in to tell him he has visitors. Stepping outside, he finds Kazuki and Suzune waiting for him. Both are dressed in white hero uniforms. Kazuki expresses his relief that Ken is okay, since they were worried when they heard he was kidnapped. Ken thanks them for their concern and says he's alive and well, but remembers he's supposed to start training that day. This thought dampens his mood as he recalls how scary Rose looks. Kazuki resolves to do his best in the fantasy world, and Suzune and Kazuki encourage Ken to do the same. They will also be starting their training that day. After checking on him, they say their goodbyes and head back to the castle. As they leave, Ken reflects on the need to get stronger so he can help them with their duties. Just then, Rose opens the door, and Ken shakes off his fear upon seeing her. She informs him that he's not in prison and is free to see visitors when he's not training. That is, she tosses him a journal, instructing him to record his daily activities and training routines inside it. She adds that he should also write down everything he feels. Then, she tells him to get ready since his training will start right after breakfast. After breakfast, Rose and Ken start training. The first routine involves Ken holding his hand over his chest. After a few minutes, she asks what he feels. He says he senses a warmth coming from his chest, and Rose tells him that's called mana. She instructs him that his next task is to try to draw the mana out of his body, but to just focus on sensing it for now. She gives him a book to read with basic information about the world and other topics. Ken is surprised and mentions he can't read the language of the world yet. When he does, he realizes he can actually read it. Rose explains that heroes summoned here always have a translation magic cast on them. She points out Linger Nation on the map and also shows him the demon territory. Ken notices that the demon territory is closer to Linger than the other nations, which is why the demons attack Linger before others. They're practically neighbors. Rose tells him to go through the book to learn about the nations, races, and more. After saying this, she leaves. Ken feels relieved that the training isn't as tough as he feared. The next day, Rose ramps up Ken's training by telling him to start running around the field. Ken obeys, but Rose doesn't let him take a break, even when his legs start to feel numb. This pattern continues on the third day, and when Ken's muscles ache, causing him to collapse on the ground, Rose heals him and tells him to keep running. With no choice, Ken gets back up to avoid Rose's wrath. He plans to vent his frustrations about Rose in his journal since that's the only place he can express his feelings freely. By the fourth day of training, Ken becomes part of the team and starts training with them, even though he's nowhere near their level. The rest of the team runs past him as if he's standing still. Rose is always there, teasing Ken, but he doesn't have the energy to retort. All he can do is keep dissing her in his diary. Ken sticks to his daily training routine, and on the 6th day, he falls while running. That's when he notices a green light shining from his hand. He realizes the light is from healing magic, but he's not ready to use it just yet. From the 7th day on, Rose becomes tougher than before. She starts kicking Ken around the training ground, making him think she must have read everything he wrote about her in his diary. This treatment continues until the 9th day. During one of their training sessions, Rose kicks Ken, causing him to hit his head on a stone. At this moment, he unconsciously uses his healing magic to fix himself up. It hits him that he can actually heal himself, and he starts to see healing magic as essential. This discovery makes him take his training more seriously. By the 10th day, he can use healing magic whenever he wants, and can run for hours without getting tired. Whenever he feels fatigued, he simply heals himself and keeps going. He continues to push himself harder, driven by his desire to help Kazuki and Suzune when they need him. On the 11th day, Rose notices Ken is getting used to running, so she changes his training plan. Now, he has to do push-ups. He can keep this up for a long time because he just heals himself whenever his arms feel sore or numb. While he's training, Rose stresses how crucial it is to train hard. She tells him he needs to be able to run fast in battle faster than the Enemido save his comrades when it matters. The faster he runs, the better he can save them. By the 12th day, Ken is already combining running with push-ups and finds it easy. His body feels lighter now, and he doesn't seem to feel any strain during these training sessions. However, the next day, Rose adds weights to his body to make it tougher. The weights feel really heavy, but he has no choice but to keep running with them. On the 14th day, his lunch goes missing, and he discovers Tong is the culprit. Furious, he chases after Tong, forgetting he's wearing the weights, and doesn't even feel them while he's running. With this, he starts getting used to the weights as well. On day 21, Kazuki, Suzune, the princess, Celia, and the head of the knights, Siglis, visit the rescue team base to check on Ken. They are surprised to find him lifting a large brick placed on his back by Rose. To make it worse, Rose is sitting on the block. Ken talks back to Rose, which annoys her. She picks up another brick and adds it to the one he's already lifting. At first, it feels extremely heavy to Ken, but he heals himself and quickly adjusts to the enormous weight. Rose is impressed and says Ken is becoming her type of man. She plans to take him out there sooner than expected if he keeps it up. Meanwhile, Suzune, watching from a distance, is already falling for Ken's muscles. Siglis approaches Rose and grabs her by the collar, scolding her for overworking Ken. He claims Rose is ruining Ken's bright future. Rose responds that she's training him hard because she wants him to be her right-hand man, and he needs to handle tough challenges if he wants to qualify for that role. Rose admires Ken for not giving up during her intense training and managing to survive all this time. She then tells Ken to take a break from training to catch up with his friends. Siglis tells Kazuki and Suzune to take Celia away while he talks to Rose. Ken and his friends walk away and sit under a tree to chat. Once they get there, he discovers that the girl with them is the princess named Celia. He quickly kneels and bows to her, but Celia tells him he doesn't need to be so formal. Suzune smiles at this and mentions that Kazuki acted the same way when he first saw Celia. Celia then reveals a pie she brought for them, and while they eat, Kazuki takes the opportunity to tell Ken about their experiences in the castle. He explains that Siglis has been teaching them swordsmanship while Welsi has been in charge of magic training. The best part is that Siglis and Welsi genuinely care about their well-being, allowing them to rest whenever they feel tired to avoid exhaustion. On the other hand, Rose is quite harsh and doesn't hesitate to put pressure on Ken. Just as Ken is about to grab another serving of food, Suzune takes the chance to sneak a look at Ken's abs. She's already infatuated with his muscles and finds it hard to resist touching them. Suzune snaps back to reality when Kazuki talks about something else. Ken then mentions that he has adapted to life in the fantasy world. He wanted to escape when he first arrived, but now he's used to it. The training sessions have even been enjoyable, and he believes life in the fantasy world isn't so bad. Suzune is impressed and tells him he has found his place in this world. Ken doesn't share their perspective, saying he's just stubborn enough not to give up. He knows that one day Kazuki and Suzune will fight as heroes, and he wants to support them no matter what. Suzune blushes deeply and says she can't wait for the day when Ken will come to save her. At that moment, Tong arrives to tell Ken that his lunch is ready. This immediately sets Ken off because he vividly remembers Tong eating his lunch. He stands up looking fierce, and Tong is surprised that Ken hasn't forgotten what happened. Ken charges at Tong, who decides to stand his ground. Rose isn't around, so Tong sees this as an opportunity to deal with Ken. However, it turns out Ken is tougher than he appears, able to match Tong blow for blow. While they're in the middle of this scuffle, Kazuki realizes that Ken has accepted his life in the fantasy world, making it part of his routine. He wants to get stronger too, so he stands to leave and go train. Suzune agrees. That night, Ken reflects on everything Suzune said and realizes she is telling the truth. His body has changed a lot, but he hasn't been too busy to notice. He's impressed with his new physique, but hopes he has the mental strength to match the body he has worked hard to build. The next day, Rose throws a bag at Ken, saying they are going out. Tong and the others say it's finally time for Ken to experience the outside world. Ken grabs the bag and follows Rose. When they reach the city gate, Rose doesn't doesn't need much time to convince the guard that she has business outside. It seems just her presence is enough to intimidate people. Ken continues following her until they arrive at a forest known as the Darkness of Linger, which is full of monsters. She tells him to go into the forest and not come back until he hunts down a grand grizzly. Ken is shocked and protests this decision, noting that grizzlies must live at least 100 years to become grand grizzlies. This means grand grizzlies are at the top of the food chain and are very strong. Ken tries to remind Rose that he's only been running and hasn't had any fighting training. But to Rose, these are just excuses because she's already made up her mind. Rose realizes Ken is wasting her time and grabs him, throwing him into the forest to face his new challenge and see if he can survive. As Ken falls toward the ground, he hopes he won't die from such a long drop. However, he realizes that he has the power to keep himself alive. He activates his healing magic, and as he falls through the bushes and trees, his injuries keep getting healed. This way, he lands on the ground without a single scratch on him. Now in the forest, he has no choice but to follow Rose's orders. He starts thinking of ways to take down the grand grizzly. While he's brainstorming, a grand grizzly suddenly appears behind him. Caught off guard, Ken takes off running before he becomes bear dinner. The bear chases him as he runs for his life. His training pays off, and he manages to put some distance between himself and the bear. He considers stopping to face the bear, but thinks better of it when two more blue bears show up out of nowhere to join the grand grizzly. Realizing he's outmatched by the trio, Ken starts running again. He spots an opening ahead and hears water sounds coming from that direction. Picking up speed, he breaks through the opening and finds himself at a waterfall. Without hesitation, the bears can't follow him and remain at the edge of the cliff until they're sure there's no sign of Ken before turning back. Ken goes with the water current and finally surfaces when it's safe. He takes off his clothes, dries them, and seeks shelter on a tree branch. He checks the backpack Rose gave him and finds only a knife, the sole weapon in the pack. There are food supplies, but nothing to start a fire. He thinks about his mission to defeat the Grand Bear and it feels somewhat impossible. Still, he decides to count his first day of survival as a win. The next day, he wakes up, gets dressed, grabs his knife, and heads out. He knows that the best thing to do is learn about his enemy. As he walks away from his base, he marks trees along the way to track where he's been. Soon, he comes across a tree with scratches on it and assumes they're made by bears, meaning they're close by. He's thinking about this when he hears rustling in the bushes behind him. He quickly arms himself and turns around to check for danger. Just then, a rabbit pops out of the bush, looking innocent. The rabbit crawls toward Ken, and he asks if it's hurt, to which the rabbit replies, yes. Ken is shocked to realize the rabbit can actually hear him. Out of kindness, Ken heals the rabbit so it can move on. After healing the rabbit, Ken continues his mission, only to discover the rabbit is following him. He tries to tell it to stay away because he's tracking some scary monsters that could be dangerous. However, the rabbit refuses to leave. Eventually, Ken realizes the rabbit might know where the Grand Grizzly is, so he asks if it does. The rabbit confirms and begins to lead him in the right direction. It takes Ken to the Grand Grizzly's den, where he realizes the two blue bears are actually part of the Grand Grizzly's family. He watches the bears for a bit and decides to take a water break. He spots a lake with funny-looking water but has no choice but to drink it. Afterward, he resumes watching the bears. Soon, Ken starts to writhe in severe pain and figures out that the water is the problem. He tries using his healing magic, but it doesn't work immediately like it does on injuries. The magic isn't effective because it's not a wound, it's poison. After he finally recovers from the poisoning, the rabbit leads him to a pond where he can find clean, drinkable water. He tastes the water and realizes it's actually good. Just then, the rabbit senses something and jumps into a tree out of fear. Ken wonders what's wrong with the rabbit but decides to join him in the tree. He recalls that the rabbit wasn't even scared like this when they were with the bear. He easily concludes that whatever the rabbit is afraid of must be dangerous. Seconds later, a giant white snake slithers out of the bushes, sending chills down Ken's spine. Just by looking at the serpent, he knows it tops the food chain in the forest. He manages to hold it together until the snake moves away. It's now been 4 days since Ken entered the forest, and he can't shake the feeling that the snake could be anywhere. He continues to observe the Grand Grizzly Bear and his family to learn their behavior. He's starting to fall in love with the adorable yet intimidating bear family. However, he knows he has no choice but to terminate them to fulfill the order from Rose. He decides he'll go after the bear the next day because he already knows what to do. The following day, he gets ready to leave, but the rabbit stops him, and he chooses to listen since it's raining. The next morning, Ken prepares to head out to take down the Grand Grizzly. He's eager to do this because he believes he's capable. He soon arrives at the bear den only to find the corpses of the Grand Grizzly and his mate on the ground. However, there's no sign of their cub anywhere. He starts to wonder what happened to the bear, and the only explanation he can think of is that the giant snake he encountered earlier terminated them. The snake didn't eat them, meaning it killed them just for fun. Just then, the baby bear emerges from its hiding spot, grieving for its parents. Ken feels heartbroken seeing the baby bear in pain, and he decides to avenge its parents. He tells the baby bear to wait at the den, and sets off to search for the giant snake. Back home, Kazuki and Suzune check on Ken, only to find out from Tong that he's been gone for 10 days. They learn that Ken is being trained by Rose, who makes all the decisions but isn't available at the moment. Kazuki is seriously worried about Ken because he knows that 10 days is too long to be alone in the forest. Suzune calms him down, saying Rose is the one who set this up and she certainly knows what she's doing. Suzune believes that Ken will return home safely. Not long after, Ken finishes his training and has made a spear from a stick. He then tells the rabbit to lead him to the snake so it can run away afterward. The rabbit agrees and starts heading toward the snake while Ken follows from behind. They soon find the giant snake, but Ken is surprised to see the baby bear fighting it. He remembers telling the bear to stay at the den, but the bear is filled with rage over its parents' death. Ken knows the snake is extremely dangerous, but he charges at it, confident that nothing is scarier than Rose. He misses his first strike against the snake and gets lucky to avoid a deadly counter from it. He uses that miss to jab his spear into the snake's right eye, but the snake reacts quickly and pushes Ken away with its body. Before he hits a tree, Ken activates his healing magic to ensure he isn't wounded. He has successfully injured the snake, and now all he needs to do is keep it up and finish the job. He pulls out his knife and plans to attack from the snake's already blind right side. However, the snake tricks him into charging in from the right and uses this to launch a surprise attack. The snake grabs Ken by the arm, and he screams in pain. Ken then remembers that he's holding his knife inside the snake's mouth. He pushes the knife upward, making the snake release him. He breaks free but starts getting dizzy from the snake's venom. He had figured out how to deal with poisoning when he got poisoned by pond water. All he has to do is heal himself from the inside out, and that's exactly what he does. He regains his normal consciousness and goes after the snake again. This time, he has the bear supporting him. The bear also attacks the snake, giving Ken a chance to reach its head. He delivers a fatal punch to the snake's head, and before it can react, Ken pulls out the spear from its right eye and drives it into the snake's head. The snake writhes in pain and finally falls to the ground. Ken lies beside it, breathing heavily. He's glad to have defeated the snake, and the bear comes up next to him. Ken tells the bear that he's using all his mana to neutralize the venom in his body, meaning he won't be able to heal the bear in the meantime. Just then, the giant snake rises again. Ken is paralyzed and can't do anything. He wonders how the snake isn't dead, but he currently has no way to fight back. Even the bear tries to drag him away, but it isn't strong enough. The snake charges at them with full force, and Ken knows there's no escape. He starts thinking about Suzune, Kazuki, and Rose. Then it hits him that Rose is the one who caused all of this. He screams out in pain, calling Rose some ridiculous names. The snake is about to finish him off when Rose appears out of nowhere and lands a devastating blow to the snake's head, killing it. Ken is surprised to see Rose and wonders how she arrived just in time. She reveals that the rabbit told her everything. It turns out that the rabbit is her pet, named Kukuru. Kukuru pretended to be injured just to gain Ken's trust. Rose has been nearby all this time, waiting for the right moment to step in. She tells Ken that the giant snake was created by the Demon Lord's army. The snake escaped during the first invasion, which is why it made the forest its home. Rose is surprised that the snake is powerful enough to take down the Grand Grizzly. The Grand Grizzly is so strong that an elite group failed to take it down. Ken is surprised to hear this and asks Rose why she would send him to hunt a beast like that. Rose tells him that his mission was never to defeat the bear. She just wanted to see how strong he has become. He also used this opportunity to gain experience by fighting a stronger enemy. Rose is impressed with Ken and says she's willing to keep him. Rose realizes that the baby bear has taken a liking to Ken and suggests that the bear come with them. The bear will carry Ken on its back. With that, they prepare to return home. Rose turns to Ken and lets him know she heard all the insults he threw at her. She promises to punish him for that. Rose then says out loud that she's impressed with Ken. She reveals that he passed the test that was thrown at him. She then tells Ken that he is now worthy of standing beside her on the battlefield. This is because the two other healers never reached his level of dedication and similar qualities. Rose then tells Ken to prepare for what's coming because she's confident that the demon army is ready to attack. Meanwhile, the Demon King and his army are preparing to attack Linger. Rose then tells Ken that he's going to be with her on the battlefield. They'll be on the front lines together, and Ken will be her right-hand man. Ken asks about Tong and the others, and Rose reveals that there are two other healers, but their tasks are different. She urges Ken to get himself ready before time runs out. Ken looks at his palm, wondering if he's really built to handle something like that. Meanwhile, in the Demon Kingdom, the Demon King is discussing matters with one of his commanders, Amila. He asks her how preparations are going, and she confirms the army is all set. She reassures the king that they will move out soon. The Demon King wants the second invasion to go much better than the first, but he tells Amila he doesn't expect her to fight to the death. After their chat, Amila leaves the throne room. She bumps into Hyruluk, known as the Demon Doctor. Hyruluk blushes and suggests that Amila should call him by his real name instead of his nickname. As Amila is about to leave, the Demon Doctor stops her and mentions he just finished a prototype of one of the demon beasts and wants her to come check it out. He takes her to his lab, where he shows her a giant snake, similar to the one Ken and Rose defeated in the forest. He names the serpent Baljanak, calling it Prototype 72. Amila scoffs, reminding him that Prototype 71 ran away after being wounded by Siglis during the first invasion. The Demon Doctor assures her that Prototype 72 is much stronger than its predecessor. Amila then expresses her concerns about the human healers on the battlefield. They're always there to save their wounded and keep them from dying. She's particularly worried about their leader, Rose, who seems to harbor a strong hatred for the Demon King. The Demon Doctor hints that Amila might want Rose for herself, but she won't be going into battle this time. Amila reveals her plan to send the demon, known as the Immortal Mage of Darkness, the Black Knight, into battle to lead the troops this time. Back in the human nation, Ken wakes up the next morning, excited about finally having a bed to sleep in. He even mentions missing Tong's snoring while he was in the forest. After getting up, he grabs some fruit from the cafeteria and takes it to the baby bear. To his surprise, the bear cub enjoys the fruit, and Ken decides to try a bite too. While he's feeding the bear, Kukuru pops up from behind, wanting some fruit as well. Ken hesitates to give him any because he's too cute, making it hard to deny him. He ends up giving Kukuru one of the fruits, so he can enjoy it too. Ken has even named the bear Blurrin. Rose shows up, and Ken explains why he named the bear Blurrin. She then tells him she got permission from the king, so they can keep the bear as part of the rescue team. However, the bear will have to earn its keep. Blurrin hides out of fear when he hears this. Moments later, Rose demonstrates what she means by Blurrin earning his keep. She tells Ken to carry the bear on his back, and this will serve as battlefield simulation training. He just needs to think of the bear as someone needing rescue or a wounded soldier. Rose orders Ken to start running and to put some effort into it. Ken thinks this should be easy. While he's in the middle of it, Tong suddenly jumps out from the bushes and tries to tackle him, but he manages to dodge him. He shouts out, demanding to know what's wrong with them. They remind him he's in battlefield simulation training, and this is what it'll feel like out there. An hour later, Ken is still at it, but the team hasn't managed to bring him down. He faces several challenges from the team but keeps pushing through. However, 4 hours later, he suddenly collapses, too exhausted to continue. He wonders why he can't move anymore, and Rose appears to tell him he's just reached his endurance limit for the battlefield. She explains that humans feel tiredness from nerves, fear, and impatience. All of these factors explain why he will run out of strength faster than usual. Ken asks Rose what he should do, and she tells him that building mental strength that doesn't weaken in the face of fear is the way forward. She places her hand on Ken's head and heals him so he can get back on his feet. Once your mana is restored, spend the entire afternoon running around the castle town, Rose tells Ken. Ken asks if he will have to carry Blurrin the whole time, to which she replies yes. Soon after, Ken starts running around the town. He expects people to flee from him since he has a bear on his back, but he's surprised to find that everyone is remarkably calm around him. He spots a woman selling Blurrin's favorite fruit and asks her what it's called. She tells him it's called Peffles. Ken then asks the woman why everyone remains so calm despite him carrying a monster. She explains that the people know he is from the rescue team. They're used to the rescue team doing unusual things, so they're not scared by this anymore. Since he has no money for fruit, he decides to buy it later. However, the woman gives him one as a souvenir, which he and the bear appreciate. Ken thinks about visiting the castle since they're nearby. He wants to check on Suzune and Kazuki. He runs past a man in a lab coat, who starts running after him, trying to stop him. The man quickly tires and falls to the ground. This is when Ken realizes the man is trying to get his attention. He stops to check on him, and takes him somewhere safe to heal. The man thanks Ken for the help, and says he feels much better now. Ken then asks why the man was trying to get his attention. The man says he just wanted to greet his junior, which confuses Ken. The man realizes Rose hasn't filled Ken in completely, and introduces himself as Orga Fleur. He mentions he's one of the 2 other healers. He then talks about how he had no idea they had new members who are summoned heroes. Orga is impressed that Ken can actually keep up with Rose's training methods. He says he and his sister couldn't. His sister is the other healer, and is 5 years younger than Orga. They run a clinic in the city where they heal the citizens. Ken asks why he collapsed earlier if he's a healer. Orga explains that he's not good at healing himself, and is only effective when healing others. Their job on the battlefield is to stay at the back while Tong and his team bring the wounded to them. He and his sister don't have the stamina to run around and heal like the captain does. This is when Ken reveals that Rose has asked him to join her on the front lines. Orga says this is a good thing because some soldiers die on the front lines because there's no one to heal them. He mentions that Rose must really trust Ken, which is why she asked him to be with her. After that, Orga stands up and says he needs to return to the clinic before his sister starts looking for him. They say goodbye, and Ken leaves. Just then, Orga's sister, Ururu, shows up and scolds her brother for being out so long. Orga tells her he found someone interesting, but she'll find out more about that soon. Moments later, Ken arrives at the castle gate and asks the guard if he can enter with the bear on his back. The guard agrees, saying he knows Ken isn't a threat as long as he's from the rescue team. This surprises Ken, and he wonders why people trust Rose so much. Ken walks into the castle and finds Suzune training with the other soldiers. She's excited to see him and takes a break from her training, sitting down to look at the interesting blue creature that came with him. Ken explains that he got the bear after going through some training in the forest. While he talks, Suzune is captivated, completely in love with the bear. She asks Ken if she can touch it, and he agrees. However, when she tries to pet the bear, it slaps her hand away. Instead of getting mad, Suzune gets even more excited. Ken suggests calling the bear's name should help, but this only makes things worse. The bear holds her hand in its mouth. The bear suckles her hand and then jumps on Ken's hand as well. Soon after, Ken notices blisters on Suzune's palm. She explains that it's from her intense sword training. Ken takes her hand and helps heal the blisters so she can get back to normal. normal. Then, Ken mentions he came to visit both Suzune and Kazuki. Suzune tells him that Kazuki is probably already out of the kingdom, along with Siglis and some troops, trying to gain experience fighting monsters. The scene shifts to the forest where Kazuki, Siglis, and the soldiers prepare for battle. Siglis feels confident that the demon forces will be stronger this time than last, but he's relieved to have Suzune and Kazuki on their side. Kazuki realizes how much the people depend on them and tells Siglis he'll do his best. Their talk is suddenly interrupted when monsters appear and ambush them. Kazuki and his comrades arm themselves for the fight against the wolves. Back at the castle, Ken hopes Kazuki is okay, and Suzune assures him that he should be since they've only been gone a few days. Suzune then shares that she plans to enter the forest for more training once Kazuki returns. After their conversation, Ken stands up to leave for the rescue team base. As he exits the castle, he thinks about how hard both Suzune and Kazuki are working. This determination drives Kazuki to do whatever it takes to save them when needed. He doesn't want to hide safely while they battle enemies. That night, Ken puts Blurrin to sleep and is about to enter the house when he sees Rose waiting for him. She asks how the training was, and he tells her he's getting used to it. He seizes the moment to tell Rose he's found a way to overcome his fears. He realizes that while he can't fight or kill, he's ready to save his friends and anyone who needs help because he's part of the rescue team. Rose is impressed and takes the opportunity to encourage him. This is the first time Ken truly feels like a member of the rescue team. The next morning, Rose wakes Ken up to let him know the king is asking for him, indicating it's time for Suzune to begin her training, and Ken will be escorting her. On their way to the castle, Ken asks Rose why he has to follow Suzune into the forest. Rose reveals that she was also asked to go when Kazuki was heading into the forest, but she denied the request because Ken had just returned from training, and she knew he would still be tired. She didn't want to stress him out more. She tells Ken that all he needs to do is heal Suzune and her party if they get hurt during their adventure. The mission will last 3 days and 2 nights, she says. When they arrive at the castle, Suzune is clearly happy to see Ken. She expresses her surprise upon finding out that he would be escorting them and gets even more excited when she realizes that Blurrin will join them on the mission. Suzune introduces Ken to the 2 guys also joining the mission, Aruku, a knight, and Korin, a mage. Ken tries to recall where he knows Aruku from, and Aruku explains that he usually works as the castle gatekeeper. Before they leave, Rose gives Suzune a piece of advice. She reminds her that Ken's magic isn't unlimited, meaning he has his own limits. Rose warns Suzune to be careful because Ken can only heal her if she's still alive, and not when she does something reckless that leads to her death. Suzune appreciates the advice, while Rose scoffs at Ken, since he was also expecting guidance from her. After this, Rose departs, sending them off. Later, Celia finds Kazuki practicing in the field and rushes over to try and dissuade him. She reminds him that he just got back from training in the forest and that he's supposed to be recovering, but Kazuki insists he has regained all his strength overnight. Celia leaves, disappointed, realizing she can't convince Kazuki to stop training. Meanwhile, Ken and the other 3 are en route to the darkness of Linger. When Ken realizes where they are headed, he remembers that Blurrin's family died in the forest and wonders how the bear feels about returning there. However, he can't ask Blurrin since the bear is asleep on his back. Suzune wants to take the chance to touch Blurrin, but Ken smacks her hand away. Blurrin finally wakes up, and Ken tells him it's time to walk on his own. Wanting to please the bear, Suzune offers to carry him. Ken tries to stop her, but she's determined. She quickly realizes her mistake when the bear climbs on her back and its weight crashes her to the ground. She gets hurt, forcing Ken to heal her. Ken has had to use some of his magic before they even get to the main action. As they go further, the mage's staff starts glowing, signaling that something is approaching. Moments later, the party is ambushed by bandits hiding in the bushes, planning to rob them. Ken and Suzune don't seem worried since they don't view the bandits as a threat. To make things worse, Suzune is actually glad they're dealing with bandits. The bandits realize they're in trouble when they see a blue bear with the party. Suzune shows them who's boss by attacking with her electrifying magic, carefully controlling her power so the bandits aren't killed. Ken tells her she can hit them however she likes, since he'll heal them afterward. Excited, Suzune continues, stunning the bandits with her lightning powers. Just when they are in the middle of this, the mage's staff glows again. Before they know what's happening, fall boars charge out of the bushes and swarm them. The knight is shocked and comments that the boars should be deeper in the woods, meaning their presence here is unusual. The boars are acting strangely, and one of them charges at Suzune. Ken sees that Suzune is in danger and quickly grabs her. The 2 are hit by the boar and sent flying into the sky. As they fall back to the ground, Suzune is scared, but Ken tries to reassure her that she'll be fine. They finally land in a river, and Suzune looks stunned. Ken recognizes the river and knows they will soon go over a waterfall. He tells Suzune to brace herself. He shields her as they go over the waterfall. Ken passes out, and Suzune has to drag him out. She promises to save him when he wakes up, but quickly pushes him away, embarrassed. Suzune has a cut on her face, and Ken heals her. They soon realize they've lost their backpack while falling. There's not much for them to survive on in the bushes. Ken suggests they find shelter for the night to figure out their way the next day. Suzune Suzune has no idea where they can rest, so Ken recommends sleeping in the trees. He had slept in the trees the last time he was in this forest and hopes Suzune can manage it. Suzune admits she's never climbed trees, making Ken realize she might come from a comfortable background. After finding a cozy spot, Suzune changes into a different outfit. She stays by the river, dipping her hands into the water. She releases electricity into the river to stun a group of fish they can use for dinner. He even asks her to start a fire with her powers, which she does to keep impressing Ken. Later that night, while they're in a cave, some venom monkeys appear. Ken knows about them from reading, which is how he knows their name. Suzune is fascinated by the monkeys and wants to touch them. Ken warns her against it, explaining that while they're not aggressive, they are poisonous, as their name suggests. Despite the warning, Suzune goes ahead and touches one of the monkeys. She's having a great time until the monkey bites her, and she instantly passes out. Ken rushes over and quickly heals her before things get worse. Back home, Kazuki just learned from the king that his friends are missing. He gets anxious and thinks about searching for them, but Rose stops him. She tells him there's no need to go into the forest, assuring him that Ken is with Suzune, and she trusts him to keep her safe. She tells him Ken isn't someone who would easily die, and as long as he's alive, Suzune will be fine too. Back in the woods, Ken suggests they take turns sleeping so one can keep watch. Ken is the first to lie down and try to sleep. A little while later, Suzune asks if he's asleep, and he replies no. Suzune then asks how he feels about being brought into this world. Ken says it's a tough question because he wants to go back, but at the same time, he doesn't want to. However, Suzune says she wants to stay in this world because she prefers it to where she came from. She has no connections to her family and friends back home. She sees this fantasy world as a place to escape from her burdens. She feels like nothing is holding her back here, unlike in her previous world. To Suzune, she feels free in this world, which is the freedom she has been searching for. Ken then starts sharing how he felt when he first entered this world. He has always wanted a way to escape his dull life, and this world seems to be his way out. Upon arriving, he thought about how to become stronger so he wouldn't be a burden to Suzune and Kazuki. However, he has managed to strengthen his resolve in a way that allows him to help his friends and anyone else in need. They both agree on this and decide that saving the people of this world will be the best thing for them. This is their home for now, and it needs their protection. After their discussion, they talk more about their relationship. Suzune realizes that Ken has always been interested in her but has never approached her. Ken soon lies down to sleep to avoid more conversation, but Suzune is glad to have had the chance to talk to him more than before. The next morning, Ken and Suzune start their journey to leave the forest. As they make their way through, Ken tells Suzune to be careful and ready for battle since they could be attacked at any moment. Suddenly, they notice a bush in front of them moving. The two get defensive but sigh in relief when they discover that it's just Blurrin. Blurrin is excited to see Ken and jumps on him. Behind them is the knight, who passes out upon seeing Suzune and Ken. Later, Aruku wakes up and reveals that Blurrin suddenly ran off while they were searching for him. He figures Blurrin must have caught Ken's scent, which is why he ran after him too. The group follows the bear, and Ken learns that Blurrin still remembers his old home. He explains that the place they are standing in is where Blurrin and his family used to live, but his parents were killed by a giant snake. Blurrin then shows Ken that he is ready to move on by urging them to leave the place. Apparently, Blurrin has decided that his place is by Ken's side. Upon returning to the castle, the king greets Ken and Suzune. He sincerely apologizes for what they went through in the forest. Ken replies that there's no need to apologize since he's used to situations like this. He suddenly realizes he's not supposed to reveal that he's in tough training with Rose. The king then asks how training with the rescue team has been. Looking at Rose, who is also in the room, he tells the king that everything is going great to avoid provoking Rose's anger and facing more intense training. After saying this, he glances at Rose, and she smiles at him, signaling that she would have had a serious reaction if he had answered differently. The king then mentions that Suzune's field training will be postponed, and encourages her and the others to relax. Ken and Suzune are free to leave the throne room, but the minister, Sergio, tells Siglis and Rose to stay behind. This surprises Ken, making him wonder why they have to remain. Ken jokes about it, suggesting they might be getting fired. Just then, they hear Kazuki and Celia calling them from behind. Kazuki catches up and shares how worried he's been after hearing that the two are missing. Celia confirms this, saying Kazuki was ready to rush out of the castle to find them. Ken tries to explain how Suzune was poisoned by a venom monkey, but she quickly covers his mouth with a cloth to spare her embarrassment. Later, Kazuki confides in Ken that Rose really trusts him, and that's why he didn't go searching in the forest. After a brief chat, Ken and Suzune leave, while Celia and Kazuki stay behind. As they depart, Celia discusses the bond between their trio. Kazuki notes that it's because they are all from another world. Celia wonders if she fits into that bond. She also expresses her dislike of how Kazuki still addresses her formally, and wants him to call her like he does with Suzune and the others. Kazuki agrees and starts calling her by her preferred name. Celia blushes deeply when he makes the change. In the throne room, the king is in a meeting with Rose, Sergio, and Siglis. The king learns that the bandits who attacked Suzune were interrogated and revealed there are fewer monsters in the grasslands, which is unusual. The king notes that there is only one explanation. The monsters must have fled the area, likely running from something frightening. Siglis concludes that the monsters were likely trying to escape the demon army. army. They can safely assume the demon army is on the move, and it's best not to underestimate them this time. Siglas is confident the demons will come at them with everything they've got to conquer the kingdom. The king takes this into account and instructs the men to start preparing. He dismisses them but asks Rose to stay behind. He then makes a special request of her. Rose knows what the king wants before he even asks she is to go out and scout the demon army. With the fastest legs in the kingdom, she's the most suited for this task. Just as she's about to leave, the king stops her, asking if she would reconsider leading the troops again. Rose firmly states she has no intention of doing so. Apparently, some of her men died on the battlefield before, and she blames herself for not saving them. It was during that encounter that she got the scar that cost her right eye, a constant reminder of the tragedy. The king tries to convince her not to blame herself, but she insists she is responsible for what happened. She believes that once someone dies, nothing can be done for them anymore. This is why Rose formed the rescue team to assist on the battlefield. The king agrees that the rescue team truly made a difference during the last battle. He tells Rose she should be happy since she has achieved her dream, but Rose is still not satisfied. Another reason she created the team is to find a subordinate who won't die. The king is shocked to hear this and says it's nearly impossible for someone not to die. Rose replies that this is exactly why she set up such brutal training, to find someone who can endure and survive the challenges. The king quickly realizes she is talking about Ken. Rose explains that Ken has excelled in everything he tries. He doesn't like to quit, and his will to live is strong. Plus, he has a rebellious streak toward her, which is one of the reasons she wants him. She's decided to make Ken the perfect healer. Rose soon realizes she has strayed from the topic and apologizes. She bows to the king and says it's time for her patrol. Later that night, Ken learns from Alec that Rose left him a letter. No one knows where Rose is, but she addressed a letter to Ken. He opens it to find a task from her. There's another sealed letter inside that she wants him to deliver. She has already drawn a map for him to follow to get the letter to its destination. All he has to do is follow the map. Meanwhile, the demon army is busy constructing a bridge to connect them to the human kingdom. The storm is making things difficult and slowing progress. During this, Amila sees that the Black Knight shows little respect for her, even though she's his superior. She tries to assert her authority, but he mocks her and walks away, telling her to call him when the bridge is finished. The demon doctor arrives to tease Amila for her failure to control the Black Knight. Amila reveals that the bridge's construction will be finished soon, allowing them to finally launch a full invasion of the Linger Kingdom. Just then, the foot soldiers discover someone is on the other side. Amila isn't worried because she knows the invasion will already be in motion before the scout reports back. Suddenly, a log flies at them, tearing the bridge apart. Amila looks closely at who threw the log and realizes it's Rose. She recognizes her sworn enemy and screams in frustration. With this, Rose believes she's managed to delay the invasion for a few more days, giving the kingdom time to prepare. The next day, Ken sets out to complete the mission Rose left for him. He starts walking around the city, using the map to find the house where he needs to deliver the letter. After wandering for several minutes, he senses something is off. Soon, he stops at a fruit stand, where the woman tells him there's fresh produce if he wants some. While they talk, a girl watches Ken from her hiding spot. Moments later, Ken reaches the spot marked on the map. He tries to remain unnoticed before entering the house. Inside, he meets a girl who turns out to be Orga's sister, Ururu. When Ururu sees Ken's uniform, she immediately realizes he's from the rescue team. She tries to recall the name her brother mentioned, but struggles until Ken helps her out. She introduces herself properly, and during this, Ururu discovers she's a year older than Ken. It suddenly occurs to Ken that he's in the clinic. Orga mentioned the first time they met. Ururu tells him her brother is currently examining a patient and invites him to come and watch how it goes. They arrive at the examination room, but Ururu insists they watch from the doorway because her brother gets distracted easily. Ken closely observes how Orga works. He notices that Orga's mana color is quite different from his own. Orga heals a boy right in front of them, and it's the boy who points out that there are two people watching. Orga is surprised to see Ken at the clinic, and Ken reveals he's there to deliver a letter. Ururu and Ken start chatting about the rescue team, while Orga breaks the seal on the letter and reads it. After reading the letter, he wears a worried expression but quickly changes it to avoid letting the others figure out what it says. Ururu talks about how excited Rose was when she began training her and her brother, but they struggled with her methods. Just then, a guy rushes in. He tells Orga that his help is needed for his friend who fell from a roof while working, injuring two others in the process. Orga, Ururu, and Ken immediately rush to the scene. The healers begin picking up the injured people one by one to try and heal them. This is Ken's first time trying to heal someone who isn't on the rescue team or Suzune. He remembers that this type of injury is what he'll face on the battlefield. He starts to feel nervous, but Orga finds a way to calm him down. He assures Ken that it's no different from what he's done before. You have the power to heal the person in front of you, Orga says. Hearing this, Ken gains confidence and manages to complete the healing. Once they're done, they leave the scene, and Orga tells Ken he's welcome to visit anytime. He can also come to the clinic to help out since it's tough for just the two of them to handle everything alone, Orga adds. Ken promises them he will return. He says goodbye and leaves. After he's gone, Orga tells his sister that the letter from Rose is to warn them that a war is on the horizon. They learn that the demon army will soon invade, and Rose wants them to be ready. Both Ken and Ururu lack combat experience, meaning this will be their first time on the battlefield. According to Orga, believing in their abilities will be their only asset in the fight. Meanwhile, Ken stops by a fruit stall to get Blurren's favorite fruit. At that moment, the girl who's been watching Ken appears. tears. She approaches him and says he's the only one who can change the future that's coming. The girl touches his hand, and Ken sees a vision where the Black Knight stands over the bodies of the heroes and human troops. He snaps back to reality, breathing heavily from what he just experienced. The girl tells him he will have to pay a debt for the big favor and then runs off. After the girl left, Ken manages to shake off the shock he's feeling. He starts searching for her to learn more about what she showed him. He can't accept the idea that Kazuki and Suzune might die in the upcoming wars. Soon, he finds a guard and asks if he's seen any girl, but the guard says no. Ken tries to describe her, but the guard insists he hasn't seen anyone like that. Just then, Rose appears behind him, and the guard vanishes as soon as he sees her. Ken is surprised to see Rose and asks where she's been. She explains that she was outside the kingdom, scouting the enemy. They're trying to build a bridge to cross the river into the kingdom, she says. However, Rose shares that she has delayed the bridge construction, giving them a couple of days to prepare. Ken jokes about this, reminding her what scouting means. As a result, he gets squeezed in the face until he screams from the pain, and Rose finally lets him go. After that, they leave the city and head home. Ken tells Rose about the fox girl he's looking for. It turns out that Rose knows who the girl is. She's surprised to learn the girl is only 12 years old, but managed to escape danger and evade kidnappers on her way to the kingdom. Ken is shocked and asks Rose why the kidnappers would be after her. Rose explains that beastkins are seen as valuable prey because some are known to have special magic abilities. Ken then asks Rose if the beast people are known to make people see strange illusions. Rose scoffs, saying she's heard of some powerful beastkins known as the Oracle of Time because they can see the future. These people are very rare and well protected among the beast people. Rose demands to know why Ken is interested in learning about the beastkins, and he lies, saying he's just curious. Ken starts to wonder if the girl he saw is one of those rare individuals. Rose reaches the palace and informs the king about everything she learned while scouting. The king apologizes for what Rose endured to gather this information, and thanks her for successfully delaying the enemy's invasion for a couple of days. Now that they're certain the enemy is coming to attack, the king plans to inform the entire nation the next day. He tells Sergio to prepare for this, and instructs Siglis to inform Suzune and Kazuki, saying they should be updated that night. Later, Kazuki and Suzune make their way to the throne room, wondering why they've been summoned. They hope it's not for what they're thinking. On their way, they run into Celia, and as usual, things get a bit awkward between her and Kazuki. After a few strange moments and staring at each other, Kazuki and Suzune say goodbye to her and continue on. Suzune then asks Kazuki what's going on with him and Celia, but he insists there's nothing, so she decides not to press further. Later that night, Ken struggles to sleep because of what the girl told him. He ponders what might be wrong and how he can save the heroes. In the middle of this, he sees 3 light bubbles visible from the window. Curious, he gets up to investigate and discovers the light bubbles are coming from Kazuki, who's standing outside the house. Ken is surprised to see Kazuki at such a late hour, but steps outside to meet him. They sit down to talk, and Ken assumes Kazuki is having trouble sleeping because he has training in the morning. However, Kazuki reveals he's not worried about that. Kazuki then shares what's really bothering him. He tells Ken that the king has informed him and Suzune that demons will be attacking soon. The heroes are expected to play a vital role in the upcoming war. This is why Kazuki is awake. He's genuinely scared about going to war. He left the palace and kept walking until he ended up at the rescue team's base. In short, Kazuki is afraid of the war. He shares how terrified he was when he faced monsters, let alone the actual war that takes lives. He's even more worried because the people of this world rely on him. They've treated him well and expect great things in return. Ken jumps in to say he's impressed that Kazuki is under pressure. He mentions it's actually good that Kazuki is putting himself first for once. You don't have to live up to anyone else's expectations, he says. Kazuki asks Ken what his own decision is, and Ken replies that he has decided to fight the demon army. He's scared about it but has made up his mind. Kazuki is taken aback and points out that Ken could actually die in a war he didn't choose, but Ken doesn't seem concerned. He shares all the reasons he's thought about that led him to decide to go to war. He mentions that Kazuki is one of those reasons, which hits Kazuki hard. Hearing this, Kazuki resolves to fight alongside Ken. He doesn't know if he can live up to the hero standard, but is sure he can still fight to protect his friends, including Ken. This surprises Ken, who then asks Kazuki why he decided to fight. Kazuki explains that since Ken is fighting, it makes sense for him to join in. He believes he'll feel much better with Ken and Suzune at his side. They then bump fists in agreement to protect the kingdom and its people, ending their conversation with smiles. After Kazuki leaves, Ken turns around to see Suzune standing behind him, completely shocked. It turns out Suzune heard everything they discussed. She wants to chat about it, but Ken is sure she followed Kazuki out of concern for him. Ken reveals he still doesn't want Kazuki to fight in the war, even though he's the one who encouraged him to do so. Suzune asks if Ken doesn't want her to fight either, and he says yes. However, he thinks her situation is different because she's already decided to stay in that world. Suzune agrees and decides it's time for her to go too, mentioning that tomorrow will be hectic. The next day, the king addresses the entire nation to update them on the latest news. He tells them the demon army will invade soon, but they have plans to intercept them in the grasslands. He's certain the demon army will be stronger this time, which is expected. However, the king is also confident that the nation's army has become stronger as well. To make things even better, 2 heroes have joined their ranks, which should help a lot. He reassures the people that the rescue team is there to assist on the battlefield, always ready to carry soldiers to safety and heal the wounded. He tries to calm the nation by saying the odds might not be in their favor, but he's confident the Kingdom of Linger will be victorious in the upcoming war because he trusts the fearless troops they have. Later that day, Celia is in her room when her maid tells her Kazuki is there to see her. She quickly goes to Kazuki, who's standing by the door. Kazuki informs her that he'll be leaving with the troops the following day. Celia's eyes well up with tears, but she tells Kazuki she will be praying earnestly for their victory. Kazuki thanks her and says goodbye. Celia watches from the hallway as Kazuki walks away in his new armor and cape. At the rescue team base, Ururu is having a blast with Blurin and Kukuru. She tries to touch the bear, but it keeps swatting her hand away. Soon, she starts playing around with the bear and rabbit. Ken leaves her to have her fun while he talks to her brother. Orga mentions that Ururu has always been full of spirit, but right now she's a bit nervous and just trying to hide it. That's why she's busy playing with the bear and rabbit to distract herself from what she's feeling. This will be her first battle, and she's trying to keep her mind off the serious possibilities that come with it. Ken and Orga are deep in conversation when Tong shows up to tell Ken that Rose wants to see him in her room. This surprises Ken since he's never been called to Rose's room before. He starts wondering what she might want to do with him, but Tong snaps him back to reality, reminding him that the boss is waiting. When Ken gets to Rose's room, she asks him about the battle plan they discussed earlier. Ken replies that Rose already told him he would be on the front lines with her, healing the troops. But then Rose tells him they won't actually be on the front lines when the war starts. They'll be in the rear, where Tong and the others will bring the wounded soldiers to them. There's no point in staying at the front from the start because there won't be any wounded soldiers initially. The front lines will be chaotic, making them an easy target for the enemy since they'll be the first squad the enemy wants to take out. Rose adds that Ken needs to be careful about who he heals on the battlefield. Ken thinks Rose is telling him not to heal the enemy, but she corrects him, explaining she's talking about soldiers with minor injuries. He should differentiate between those who are only slightly hurt but can still fight, so he doesn't get in their way. In short, Rose wants Ken to make sharp decisions when he's out there. After that, she hands Ken a box and tells him to open it. Inside, he finds a uniform neatly wrapped up. Rose tells him this uniform is mainly for the rescue team and is designed to stand out on the battlefield. She encourages Ken to try it on, and when he does, it looks great on him. Rose moves closer to Ken and becomes stricter at the same time. She reminds him that healers are not immortal, which is why he needs to be careful on the field. She tells him not to sacrifice himself and to avoid making rash decisions when he's out there. Ken agrees and assures her that he'll protect himself while also looking out for others. After this pep talk, Ken packs the uniform back into the box and leaves the room. As he walks away, he vows to protect Kazuki and Suzune, no matter what he saw in the vision. Soon after, Ken and the rest of the healing team start their journey to find and intercept the demons. Ururu is already complaining about how far they've traveled, and her brother reminds her that they need to go far away from the nation to fight the demons. Ken then asks Rose about the demons' physiology. Rose explains that demons are demi-humans with twisted horns on their heads. They might look human, but demons are physically stronger and have more mana than humans. In short, they surpass humans, and this applies not only to their officers but their regular soldiers as well. Rose asks Ken if he's scared, but he says no. He jokes about knowing someone scarier, clearly referring to Rose. Ken talks about the hellish training he's undergone under Rose, and says it has shaped him. Rose gives him a side eye, and he raises his hands in fear she might hit him. However, Rose does nothing because she's lost in thought. She remembers something that makes her place her hand on her right eye. A flashback takes us back 5 years when Rose still has both her eyes. She was the commander of the Linger Knights and is seen entering the throne room. Once inside, the king informs her and Siglis that there have been sightings of demons in the grasslands. The king says there have been no casualties so far, but that doesn't mean they should relax. To be safe, the king orders that merchants be assigned guards while they travel. He knows the demons are dangerous because they are strong, and he urges his people to be careful. After the briefing, Rose leaves the throne room. After leaving, Siglis approaches her to discuss the demons and their movement. He's worried the demons have gathered enough strength to invade. Rose sees this as a possibility, and the two plan to gather their troops in preparation for an attack. After discussing this, they go their separate ways. Rose's deputy commander, All, shows up. She tries to talk to her boss, but Rose is lost in thought about preparing for the demons. All keeps calling her, and Rose is forced to knock her on the head to get her to back off. Even then, All doesn't give up and reveals she knows about the demons. Because of this, Rose hits her again, scolding her for always eavesdropping on classified meetings. All cries out, complaining that her boss is too hard on her. The two leave the castle together and head to their base. All talks about defeating the enemies, and Rose reprimands her for being too confident. She warns that underestimating enemies is a mistake, and when All tries to defend herself, Rose changes her mind and says she will oversee their training that afternoon. All screams in pain because she knows she's put herself and the rest of the squad in trouble. They get home, and the knights welcome them. The knights notice something's wrong with All, and when they ask, she brushes them off. However, Rose reveals why the deputy is acting that way when she mentions she'll be in charge of training. The knights scream out because they know all must have said or done something to provoke the commander. They end up ganging up on her and beating her up because of it. She begs Rose to make them stop, but Rose says it's not her problem. A week later, the king calls Rose to inform her that the demons are now attacking monsters in the human nation. The attacks have become frequent, prompting the king to tell Rose to investigate and use force if necessary. After receiving this order, Rose mobilizes her knights and tells them they'll be moving out in the morning. All tries to motivate the team, but instead, she gets beaten up by them. They blame her for everything they've gone through over the past week. Rose tells Kukuru that he'll be staying home because she doesn't want him to get hurt. His ability to track monsters would be valuable, but Rose isn't willing to put him in danger. The team gets excited when they hear Rose will join them on the mission. They know they'll be able to fight at their best because they have their boss there to heal and motivate them. The next day, the team gets right to it. They mount their horses and head into the forest. That night, they set up camp since it was already dark. They've explored some of the woods, but found nothing. One of them suggests checking out the west side, though they know it's the most dangerous area. All agrees, sharing her uneasy feeling about the west side. The guys decide to go along with her wish since she's the deputy director. Once that's settled, All tells the team it's time to sleep, but they'll take turns watching the fire. Rose volunteers to be the first watch while everyone else rests. A little later, Rose talks with All, since she knows she's still awake. All realizes she's been caught and stands up to discuss what's on her mind. She asks Rose why she picked her as the deputy commander when she feels unqualified. All she's done is write reports and request equipment, which seems more like running errands. Rose replies that she thinks All is doing a great job and isn't one to complain. She even plans to pass the commander role to All in the future, which shocks All to her core. Since she's in charge of the battalion now, she wants All to lead the unit one day because she can't manage both. All doesn't want that because she fears the team won't accept her. She shares that she's a stubborn person who sticks to her beliefs, even if she's the only one supporting them. She's used to silencing others who don't agree with her, but then she met Rose, whose use of force changed her viewpoint. Even when All tries to defend herself, she ends up losing each time. Still, she keeps fighting back because she doesn't want Rose to outdo her. She's amazed that Rose is the first and only person who stands by her and even challenges her. Others usually get fed up and leave after some time. She acknowledges that Rose might be annoying, but she understands the unit better than anyone else. That's why All wants Rose to continue being their commander. Hearing this, Rose stands up and lightly taps All on the head again. All can't complain since she knows what kind of person her boss is. Rose scolds All for thinking she'd be foolish enough to choose someone unworthy as her successor. Rose makes it clear that she didn't choose All randomly. She took her time and made the decision confidently. All is surprised and wonders what Rose sees in her. Rose begins to list the qualities that led her to pick All as deputy commander. She appreciates that All never gives up once she's made her mind up. Rose wants that mentality to be a stable foundation for those around her. As long as All keeps pushing forward, others will follow her lead. This revelation shocks All, who starts to question why her team would follow her. She smiles widely, waiting for Rose to explain the reason. Rose tells her that things are constantly changing, and All needs to accept it. She is their current leader, but one day, she won't be, and All has to come to terms with that. After hearing all this, All understands and agrees with everything Rose has said. With that settled, Rose stands up to go to sleep, while All takes her turn watching. Rose knows the rest of the squad isn't really asleep and makes it clear she's aware of it. All is surprised to find out that the guys have been listening to their conversation. They assure her that they always have her back. They might not show it all the time, but they're ready to follow whatever she says because they trust and care about her. The next day, the squad discovers claw marks on some trees. They identify these claw marks as belonging to a glow wolf. There are also footprints and red liquid on the ground. This convinces them that demons are indeed hunting monsters, but they question what the demons want by targeting monsters in human territory. Some think they're doing it for fun, but All suspects there are deeper reasons. Just then, they hear a roaring sound in the distance, and the squad heads toward the noise. They hide behind some bushes and see a group of demons taking down monsters and loading them into a carriage. Among them is a figure of authority who appears to be their leader. The leader catches a whiff of human scent and makes it clear that he knows they're there. Rose realizes there's no reason to hide anymore and reveals herself, prompting the rest of the squad to follow her lead. She steps out from the bush, but tells All and the others to stay put for now. Rose asks the leader why they are hunting monsters, and he replies that there's a reason, but he won't share. Rose then asks him what he plans to do because they still have a chance to avoid conflict. The demon leader, feeling confident, tells Rose he can't let her go since she's seen them. He intends to eliminate Rose and her squad. Hearing this, All steps out to back her up. Rose then instructs All to take charge of the team since she won't be able to give orders while fighting the demon. The demon leader and Rose charge at each other, and he uses wind magic against her. Surprisingly, Rose is faster than the attack, reaching him before he realizes what's happening. He manages to dodge the hit just in time, and is about to comment on how impressed he is that a human can be strong when Rose launches another attack. She hits him hard, sending him crashing into the forest behind them. Rose wants to chase after him and leaves her unit to handle the remaining demons. She runs after the guy and uproots a tree and throws it in front of him to block his path. She follows up by hurling more trees at him. She grabs one of of the trees and uses it to pin him down. The demon breaks free and comes at Rose with a powerful wind attack, expecting it to stop her, but she breaks out of the spiraling attack thanks to her healing abilities. The demon then realizes Rose is a healer, and her incredible physical strength makes her an effective melee fighter. The demon decides it's time to get serious, but first, he introduces himself. His name is Nero Argents, and he asks for her name, which Rose gives. A red portal opens in the ground, and Nero's staff emerges. He threatens to take Rose down, but she assures him she'll beat him to a pulp before he ever gets the chance to eliminate her. The two charge at each other with everything they've got. The battle between the two groups rages on. Rose's unit is ready to show the demons they're not easy to beat. Rose notices that Nero's demon sword is cursed, which is why she can't let that ugly possessed sword touch or cut her. She dodges an attack from one of the guys and counters, sending him flying to the ground. Rose taunts the demon, telling him to get up because she's pretty sure he still has the strength to fight. Nero admits that Rose and her unit are quite skilled. However, he's not ready to be defeated because they're working towards bringing their demon lord back. With that, Nero releases a powerful control spell from his body, showing Rose that he and his squad are prepared to become sacrificial lambs if it means their lord's rebirth. Rose's unit notices something strange about the demons. The demons start acting like their lives don't matter, and Rose suspects that Nero has messed with their minds. She goes after him, determined to take him down before he has a chance to do anything. One demon holding Naruka plunges her head into death, dying alongside her. Nero has basically conditioned his squad to die beside the humans if that's what it takes. This effect continues, and Rose starts losing her unit one by one. Losing her cool, she charges at Nero like a rabid dog. This gives Nero the perfect opportunity to predict her moves, and he slashes her right eye. Rose tries to heal the wound, but she can't because the sword is cursed. Even with half her vision, Rose stands firm, trying to take down Nero with whatever she has left. Nero is about to finish her off when All jumps in and takes the hit, getting severely cut instead of Rose. She collapses to the ground, realizing her entire unit is gone, the unit that always believed in her. Nero takes this moment to trash talk her and her unit, which only infuriates Rose more. She grabs the guy's sword like it's nothing and lands a punch to his stomach, bringing him to his knees. She's determined to teach him a lesson. She punches Nero repeatedly, and even when he tries to fight back, he can't. Rose is in full-on termination mode, and Nero stands no chance against her. She throws him around like he's trash, slamming him into a tree and impaling him with his own sword. She's starting to tire, but she wants to finish the job. Just as she gets closer, a young Amila pops out from the woods, ready to save Nero, leaving Rose shocked that someone would still want to save the guy responsible for her squad's annihilation. Amila pulls out the sword, and plot armor surrounds her as Rose watches her drag Nero away. Once they're gone, Rose drops to her knees, hearing All's groans and crawling toward her. She tries to heal All, but the cut is too deep, and on top of that, it happened with the cursed sword. Before All passes away, she tells Rose to stay the commander they know her to be. All dies, and Rose lets out a loud, pain-filled scream as she looks around at the bodies of her comrades. Back at the castle, Rose reports to the king, and when she's done, she asks him to remove her as commander of the battalion. As if that's not enough, she wants him to take away her knighthood because she doesn't see herself as a knight anymore. While walking through the streets, Rose runs into a man and a woman, Josh's parents. They thank Rose for letting Josh serve in her unit, mentioning the positive impact she had on him since he was an annoying delinquent before joining her squad. They don't blame her for Josh's death, but are grateful for the opportunity she gave him. A month later, Siglis visits Rose because she hasn't left her base since the incident. He's there to encourage her and pull her out of her dark place. He notices that her right eye is healing, meaning the curse was only temporary. He wonders why Rose hasn't healed her eye since the curse is lifted. After Siglis leaves, Rose decides to leave the injured eye as it is, wanting it to remind her of what happened to her unit. Maybe it's partly because she likes the idea of wearing an eye patch, who knows. Rose finally comes to the conclusion that she's not going to waste the second chance All gave her. Sitting in her living room, she reflects on her life when the images of her deceased unit appear. All and the others tease her for being down and urge her to cheer up. She's known as the joyful one, and they don't want that to change. They tell her to move forward because things don't stay the same, and she needs to accept this new reality. Remembering what All said about staying true to herself, along with the beautiful memories she shared with her team, Rose manages to pull herself together. That's when she decides to create a unit that will save lives in preparation for the upcoming battles. On top of that, she needs someone who understands her. In the present day, she tells Ken that she's happy to have found him. Ken wants to smile at this, but Rose playfully pokes him in the stomach because she can't stand seeing him laugh or smile. She tells Ken that she's counting on him to be with her on the battlefield because she's pretty sure he's not going to die. Ken grins at the compliment, but as usual, Rose gives him a good whack. The poor have suffered a lot at the hands of this cruel beach. Meanwhile, the demons have finally finished the bridge they've been building, and the armored knight can't wait to battle the humans. Even though Amila is advising the knight to be cautious, they just don't care. The next morning, Ken wakes up early and leaves leaves the tent to check out the surroundings. He reminds himself why he has to deal with a bunch of annoying jerks while also trying to save the pretty dumb soldiers. While he's in the middle of this, Suzune suddenly appears, like she's been waiting for her favorite toy. She starts rambling about the awesome qualities of her shiny armor. Ken really isn't into this boring conversation, but Suzune is pretty persistent. She moves in closer, and Ken starts praying that Kazuki will show up to rescue him. His prayers are answered when Kazuki appears to take Suzune away, since Siglis is already asking about them. Moments later, Siglis rallies the army and assigns everyone their duties. Suzune and Kazuki are put in charge of the vanguard, and their goal is to break the enemy's formation. They're also allowed to push back and attempt to capture the commander. Kazuki notices that Suzune looks troubled and tries to calm her down. Before long, the enemy forces appear right in front of them. The mages, including the heroes, launch a long-range attack, but they're shocked to discover the enemies they hit are just illusions. The real enemy forces are coming from the southwest and have already closed in. The battle has already started, and Rose instructs Tong, Alec, Mill, Gommel, and Gerd to head into the battlefield to help retrieve wounded soldiers for healing. Orga and Ururu will stay in the tent to tend to the injured while Aruku protects them. Rose and Ken will enter the battlefield when things get serious. Not long after that, the wounded begin to come in. Ken's hand shakes like crazy as he's about to heal one of the soldiers. He realizes he's seeing real war, not some video game he was playing back home. The injured soldier talks about a giant snake attacking them on the battlefield. Ken wonders if this snake is the same one he defeated in the woods, but pushes that thought away to focus on healing the wounded soldier. On the battlefield, a knight in dark armor gets stabbed from behind by a human soldier, but he doesn't seem worried. The soldier gets injured without even a fight and falls to the ground. The knight is about to finish him off, but one of the healers arrives just in time to save the soldier. The knight is impressed and actually wants to see more from the humans because he's bored out of his mind. He spots lightning in the distance and takes it as a sign of some exciting action he wants to join. As the battle continues, Rose decides it's time for her and Ken to move out. She asks if he's ready, and he says yes. Before they go, Aruku reassures Rose that he'll protect the healers. With that, the two head onto the battlefield. Ken remembers a bad vision he had, which makes him hesitate. When Rose asks what's wrong, he simply says nothing. Rose knows he's not ready to kill. He wants to save people. She gives him some final advice before they part ways. Ken sees a human soldier about to be killed by a demon and jumps in just in time to save the fool. He saves several soldiers and tells them to fall back to camp if they can't keep fighting. Meanwhile, Suzune is doing her best, but seems to be feeling the pressure of the battle. Kazuki notices, but she quickly puts on a smile to trick him into thinking she's okay. Things are about to get more intense with the arrival of the dark-armored knight. A group of foolish human soldiers rush at the knight and attack him, but he doesn't resist. They soon find out why when they start writhing in pain. Without much thinking, Suzune appears to have figured out the knight's magic power. Kazuki strikes the knight's shoulder from afar, but the attack bounces back at him, confirming that the knight is using a magic called Reflect. This magic sends any damage done to the armor back to the attacker. The knight is impressed that Suzune figured out his skill, praising her for being the first to do so easily. Ken is doing his duties when a stubborn migraine hits him hard. He tries to heal himself, but nothing seems to work. As he struggles, he starts to worry that something might have happened to Suzune and Kazuki. The pain makes him vulnerable to a demon soldier, but a human soldier he saved a moment ago comes to his rescue. He asks the soldier where the heroes are, and the soldier tells him they're fighting at the center of the battlefield. Meanwhile, Suzune battles the knight and realizes they're at a serious disadvantage since they can't attack. She comes up with a plan and shares it with Kazuki. Together, they charge at the knight. Suzune creates a dust cloud to block the knight's vision. Once that's done, they attack the knight in dark armor together. However, they quickly discover that it backfires and hits them instead. Just then, Suzune notices that there's damage on the knight's back that hasn't been reflected. An idea sparks in her mind, and she tells Kazuki they should try another attack. This time, Suzune activates her super speed, darting around the knight, while Kazuki blocks the knight's view with a ball of light. Before the knight can react, Suzune drives her sword into his throat from behind. She believes the knight can't reflect attacks that come out of nowhere. Plus, she's taken away the enemy's ability to say the word, reflect. She urges Kazuki to attack now that they have a shot, but they learn the hard way that the knight was just playing with them. The knight reflects Suzune's attack, reopening her neck wound. Kazuki gets impaled by the knight as he tries to jump toward him. The knight mocks them, telling Suzune they left the wound on their back unreflected to mislead them. He adds that he doesn't even need to speak to reflect an attack. All he needs is the will and thought to do it. The knight proudly claims that nothing in this world can stop him. Kazuki is already on the ground half dead, and Suzune is slowly joining him. Ken is on his way to help them, but he might be too late to reach his friends. As Suzune and Kazuki slowly lose their life force, Suzune remembers the first day she approached Ken in school. She feels lucky to have met Ken that day. She was happy about being summoned to this world, and also that Ken, who everyone thinks is the useless one, knows exactly what he's supposed to do. The human soldiers look on in total disdain as they see the heroes lying there on the brink of death. The demons are celebrating because the Black Knight seems unstoppable. The Black Knight raises her sword to finish what she started. However, Ken rushes toward them with blinding speed. He delivers a devastating blow to the knight's body. Ken is relieved to have reached his friends before they could pass away. He immediately starts healing them, but the knight stands back up. A piece of armor falls off her face, revealing that the knight is a woman. She admits that the attack hurt, and promises to hurt Ken even worse because of it. Ken doesn't doesn't have time to fight her. Instead, he carries his friends, intent on fleeing. The demons try to stop him, but the human soldiers are there to cover his exit. Suzune opens her eyes and thanks Ken for saving them. The Black Knight keeps chasing Ken and even throws her sword at one point, almost hitting the trio, but Ken manages to dodge it. Ken comes to a stop and Suzune tells him they haven't been able to harm the Black Knight, but for some reason, Ken's attack hurts the annoying knight. The knight catches up, vowing to hurt Ken the way he hurt her. Ken doesn't plan on fighting her, but she's getting on his nerves. Deciding to engage her in battle while Suzune watches over Kazuki, he charges at the knight, realizing her armor can morph, making it even deadlier. The knight tries to hit Ken, but her attacks don't affect him, leaving her shocked. Ken sees that she doesn't expect what he's bringing and increases the intensity of his punches. Frustrated, the knight tells him to die, but Ken reminds her that people don't just die because she says so. Finally regaining consciousness, Kazuki hears from Suzune that Ken was the one who healed them. He's currently fighting the scary Black Knight. All of the knight's reflection attacks are failing against Ken, since he's constantly in a healing state. Suzune wonders if the knight's weakness could be healing magic. They realize that Ken isn't injuring the knight with his attacks. He's just making each one really painful for her. Suzune admits that this is definitely the wrong way to use healing magic. The Black Knight gets furious that Ken has been playing with her and activates everything she has. Her aura becomes more terrifying, and her sword grows even larger. This is supposed to intimidate Ken, but he doesn't care about her show of force. All he knows is that he has to end this. Ken and the knight charge at each other, colliding and creating a massive wave in their wake. Ken holds on to his limits and overcomes the knight using his healing magic. He breaks through her sword, allowing him to deliver a finishing blow right through her. Rose sees this from a distance, looking impressed by what she's witnessing. Once the dust settles, the Dark Knight has lost her armor, leaving her completely vulnerable. It turns out she's a female demon with white hair, and she's been knocked out cold by Ken's attack. Ken names his finishing punch, the ultimate healing punch. Once the demons see their best fighter has been defeated and captured, they start scurrying back into their holes like rats. Suzune thanks Ken for saving them because they surely would have died without his help. She asks what kind of attack he used, and he explains that Rose taught him at the last minute. That was her advice before they parted ways. He just needs to imbue his fist with healing magic, so he heals his enemy while inflicting serious pain. This won't kill the enemy, but will definitely knock them out. Suzune and Ken are celebrating their success when soldiers arrive to inform them that the snake is still causing chaos. The heroes plan to end this, and Ken wants to join, but Rose intervenes to stop him. Ken nearly panics at the sight of his master and starts to apologize, saying he had taken care of everything before her arrival. Rose then tells Ken they need to return to camp, and that he should let the heroes handle the snake. Ken tells his friends they better come back alive, and Suzune reassures him that they won't waste the lives he gave them. Meanwhile, in the demon camp, Amila and the others learn that the Black Knight has been captured, throwing them into total panic. Amila becomes even more frightened when she hears there's another agile person just like Rose. She realizes they're doomed since they haven't even faced Siglis, and they're already losing badly. She tells Hiruluk to call the snake back because it's time to retreat. Hiruluk is about to do this when he sees that the heroes have ambushed the snake. Teaming up, Suzune and Kazuki take down the crawling beast. Now in the infirmary, Rose tells Ken that the enemy is retreating and wants to know if they should chase, but she says no. She's trying to avoid more casualties because the demons will likely attack again soon. Just then, Rose starts to compliment Ken, telling him that the battle might have been lost if he hadn't saved the heroes. Hearing the praise brings tears to Ken's eyes as he realizes his hard work wasn't in vain. Rose pats him on the head, and Ken thanks her for showing him the right way to save people. Rose smiles proudly at him. Ken feels dizzy and faints, but Rose catches him, realizing he's out of mana and stamina. She's glad he managed to last this long and couldn't be prouder of her goofy student. After the battle, Ken is called to the castle where the king rewards him for his bravery in winning the fight. Ken has never stood in front of so many people before, which makes him nervous, but a smack from his master snaps him back to reality. He sits down to tell his overweight pet, Blurrin, about everything that happened. Just as he gets into the story, Gomel shows up to inform him that he's needed in the castle again. As he walks through the street, the people treat him like a celebrity, which makes things pretty awkward for him. When he arrives at the castle, Aruku thanks him for his efforts in the war. In the throne room, the king tells him they need his help with the Black Knight he captured. She has been cooperating during interrogations, showing she's not loyal to the demon realm, but they want to know more about the demon army, which she's holding back. She insists that only seeing Ken will make her cooperate. Ken agrees, and as he heads to the basement, he's escorted by Suzune, who claims she's there to protect him. Ken has to remind her that the Black Knight literally kicked her butt in battle. The knight uses dark magic, but Ken's healing magic cancels out her powers. He suddenly recalls how much damage he did to her body, and realizes she should have received medical treatment. Ken rushes to the cell where the Black Knight is now in her armor. He asks if she's okay, but she says she's used to pain. Still, Ken knows she must be suffering inside, so he tells Siglis to let him in. Siglis permits it, and Ken starts healing her. He works his way to her face, soothing her and forcing her to remove her armor completely. Tears stream down her cheeks as she tells Ken she's never felt this way before. Later, Ken realizes he's about to endure more training hell when his master tells him he needs to learn how to dodge blows. He's used to taking hits and healing himself, but his master wants him to avoid them instead. Rose gets ready to punch him, but he starts running backward. She even warns him that she'll start easy, but Ken wonders what kind of monster enjoys always hitting their subordinates. The training begins, and Rose lands a punch that knocks him out cold. Ken wakes up to the same treatment again. This goes on for 3 days, making his life miserable. Deciding to visit the Black Knight in her cell on his day off, he shares everything that happened, leaving her wondering why he's doing this. She realizes she's becoming vulnerable around him and asks him to leave. As he's about to exit the castle, he bumps into Kazuki, who's training in front of Celia. He can't believe this is what training looks like because his master has nearly killed him, claiming it's training. Kazuki notices Ken and pauses his workout so they can chat. Celia tells Ken that the king now trusts him more than before, realizing they would have lost the battle without his brave intervention. Ken tries to be modest, saying he didn't do anything, but Kazuki interrupts. He's about to mention that he almost died when he remembers Celia is there, so he quickly shuts up. However, Celia picks up on it, and after Ken leaves, Kazuki finds himself in a hot interrogation. Meanwhile, Ken wonders what will happen to the Black Knight now that she's given up all the information they wanted. There's a possibility she might face execution. The Black Knight is in her cell when Rose shows up, catching her completely off guard. Rose tells the lady she has 2 options, and the Black Knight is already scared out of her wits. She knows Rose is way stronger than Ken, making her a serious threat. Rose offers her the choice to rot in jail or join her, so she can turn her into an upright demon. Not that she really has a choice, since Rose has already made her decision. Rose puts a magic tool around the knight's neck to restrict her dark magic and stop her from putting on her armor. The knight starts to wonder what Rose wants with her, but she's about to find out if she can be patient. Ken and Blurren are jogging when suddenly, he gets sidekicked by his intimidating master. She reminds him that he's supposed to be taking time off, and Ken wonders if that's enough reason for her to kick him. Ken is shocked to see the knight with Rose. Rose informs him that she plans to reform the lady and make her an errand runner for the rescue team. Rose is already having fun because this will be her first time training a demon. When the knight wakes up, Ken offers his condolences because he knows she's completely done for. Later that night, Rose tells Ken that the king plans to send him and the heroes to other nations to deliver messages. Ken wonders why he was chosen along with the heroes, and Rose assures him that the king now trusts him to get the job done. She tells him to get ready before he's called upon. Ken decides to buy a book in town, and the bookseller apologizes for how they acted after the battle. They were just really impressed by how good he was. Unfortunately for Ken, he runs into the creep, Suzuna, again. He's trying to deal with that when he sees the fox girl, who shows him a vision of Suzune and Kazuki dying on the battlefield. He rushes over to her, and to his surprise, the girl tells him it's time to pay her back because she needs Ken to save her mother. The fox girl tells Ken that he's the only one she can rely on and introduces herself as Amako. She then insists on having a private conversation. Meanwhile, the Dark Knight struggles with the tough training imposed on them by Rose. She views the entire rescue unit as inhumane, since there's no way someone isn't dying from such intense training. Feeling exhausted, she lies down, but a kick from Rose gives her the adrenaline boost she needs, and she jumps back into training. Since Rose and the others are busy training, Ken and Suzune choose to talk to Amako in the dorm. Ken thanks her for saving his friends by showing him the vision. Amako explains she's been searching for a healer, which is why she left the distant Beastkin territory, since only humans have healers. They ask her why she didn't go to Orga or Ururu for help, since they would have definitely assisted her. She replies that those two can't fight, and she needs someone who can. When they ask why she didn't approach Rose, she says she already saw Rose decline her request in a vision. When she saw Ken, she realized he was the one who would help her. Ken thinks it over and agrees to assist. Since he has to travel to deliver messages, he can make a quick stop at the Beastkin territory. However, Ken needs to consult Rose about this. He finds Rose and shares his plan. Rose is surprised to learn there's an Oracle of Time in their lands, suggesting it could spark a war between them and the Beastkins. Still, Rose believes Ken can venture into the Beastkin territory because of the journey he's about to undertake. Ken goes back to the room, but Amako already knows the outcome of his talk with Rose. She thanks Ken before leaving for the day. That night, the Dark Knight struggles to eat due to the stressful and grueling training she's been through. Ken tells her to eat since she hasn't seen anything yet. She's only at the gates of hell and hasn't entered the fire. Her training continues like this, and on the 10th day, she seems to be improving. While passing through the forest, she hears a scream coming from the woods and decides to pause her training to check it out. It turns out that Rose and Ken are engaged in their usual dodge-the-punch training. Given the blows Ken has taken, the Dark Knight thinks he should already be dead. However, as the training goes on, Ken manages to dodge one of Rose's punches, which excites him, but another punch sends him crashing into a tree. He doesn't care much about it since a win is a win. He's finally been able to dodge a punch from Rose after days. The Dark Knight concludes that Ken is no longer human since he should be dead. Rose then tells the Dark Knight to keep training under Ken. Ken and the Knight sit down to chat, and Ken tells her that his master is a complete monster. All the Knight can say back is that Ken is turning into one himself. Ken then decides to finally ask her name. She replies that it's Felm. Just after learning her name, Ken dashes off with Blurren, leaving Felm heartbroken. She expects him to have a long conversation with her, but he zooms off with his pet. She chases after him, trying to keep up, but eventually passes out. While having dinner, the rescue team suspects the guy has done something shady to the girl, but he insists he's innocent of whatever dumb thing they might be thinking. Ken badmouths Rose, which nearly costs him dearly. Later that night, Felm overhears Ken and Rose discussing his journey to deliver messages. The next morning, Felm packs her bags and leaves the dormitory. Meanwhile, Ken and Amako head to the throne room where the king thanks Amako for her help. The king tells Ken that Welsi will provide the rest of the information he needs. He'll be visiting the magical city of Lukvist, the prayer nation of Samariarl, the water nation of Myalark, and finally, he'll stop at the Beastkin territory. Kazuki and Suzune will accompany him to Lukvist, but they will part ways after that. Ken will be left with his attending knights, but having too many will raise suspicions from the other nations. He's allowed to take 2 knights with him and can choose whoever he likes. Once given the choice, he picks Aruku as one of the knights to follow him. This is a big honor for Aruku, and he accepts the task. For the second night, Ken chooses his hefty pet, Lurin. Meanwhile, Rose catches up to Felm. She knows Felm talked to Ken about the messages and believes Felm will spill the beans to the demons, but that's not her plan. Instead, she's hiding in the woods to join Ken on his journey. Apparently, she's worried about him, but Rose reassures her that Ken is tough and won't get hurt easily. Rose has another plan for Felm, but first, they need to head back to the dormitory. That evening, Felm and Ken get some time to talk, which is basically their goodbye. Felm tries to hide that she actually cares about Ken. Rose then gives Ken some brutally honest advice, telling him to beat up anyone who claims any magic is better than healing magic. Toes knows that the journey he's about to take will change him, and this is Rose's way of wishing him luck. She tells him she expects great things from him, basically turning him into Spider-Man. Ken admires Rose a lot and is glad she's his mentor. The next day, the heroes and Ken set off on their journey. Rose has also taken Felm to the place where she will finally receive her training. She is in hell at last.